glitchy connecting. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 5 of Finding Bliss in Real Estate. And again, I'm in my beautiful backyard here in Placerville because the day is gorgeous. And today we're going to be talking about a couple things. Number one is this is my good friend and home inspector, Kelly Reeves with Sierra Inspections. And we'll also have a couple of other articles to talk about. So thank you for coming. And of course, if you like the show, please share or like or follow or any of those buttons. So let's jump right in. Kelly, tell me a little bit about tell the audience who you are. I know all about you.
Well, my name is Kelly Reeves. I'm the owner of Sierra Inspection Services, and I've owned my own company for about the last 17 years, and I've been doing inspections for about the last 30 years. So I've been doing this for a while, licensed general contractor, structural pest control operator, did all those kinds of things. And I just really enjoy doing home inspections because it helps me protect the buyers and what they're out there buying these houses and spending a lot of money buying a house. And we want to make sure that it's safe for them and that it's in good condition. So I really like doing that. And I love working with people like Morgan. She's just amazing.
Well, thank you. I want to just add, I've known Kelly since I started doing selling homes 11 years ago. So it definitely speaks to his character because I don't work with people who aren't great. So I do want to mention, I want to start off with actually tell us a little bit more about certifications for home inspections, because I know that anybody can say they're a home inspector,
right?
But I know there's more to it.
Well, so in California, they don't have licensing for home inspectors. So basically anybody can put out their shingle and say that they're a home inspector, even though they worked at Home Depot last week or Target or whatever. So it's really important that you look for the certifications, and the premier certifying agency in the United States is called ASHI, which stands for American Society of Home Inspectors. And in order to be an ASHI certified inspector, even to apply for getting certified, you have to have completed 150 paid inspections. So somebody has to have paid you. It can't be your brother-in-law's house to do the inspection. And then in addition to all the training that you have to do before you can do all of that, you submit those 150 inspections to ASHI, and they have a review committee that goes through all of those reports to make sure that they're in compliance with the ASHI standards, that you're covering all the areas that you're supposed to, that everything is the way that it's supposed to be. And so you have to go through all of that. You have to pass the National Home Inspector exam. So there is training involved, and there is a certifying exam that you have to pass. And then you also have to maintain continuing education hours every single year. So for us, it's, I think, 35 hours of continuing education that we have to do every year on technical as well as business classes and everything else. So there's a lot that goes into maintaining that after you've actually passed it. Unfortunately, there are some certifying agencies out there that don't require anything other than paying the fees and submitting basically an application like you would for a website, where you're just giving them your name and your credit card number and your address, and that's it. And then congratulations, you're a home inspector, a certified home inspector.
I didn't know that.
Yep. There are 2 certifying agencies in California that are really good, and that's ASHI, which is national, and then CREA, which is a California-only certifying agency. And they're so similar that literally continuing education hours from ASHI transfer to CREA and CREA to ASHI because they have almost the exact same strict standards. So if you get a home inspector who is either ASHI or CREA certified, you're pretty good.
That's super good to know, because there's a few people out there who are licensed or ex-licensed general contractors or nothing at all.
Yep. And general contractor does not translate to inspections.
That's what I was going to say. It's like, and nothing to discredit the general contracting process. It's just a very different thing about like, how do you build a house, blah, 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 versus what are the safety standards?
Exactly. And general contractors tend to get wrapped up in what the building codes are. And the building codes don't really deal with safety concerns with the house. They're dealing with new construction, not or also remodeling, but mainly with newer construction. And even with remodeling, that's new construction in an existing house. So with home inspection, we're looking at a completely different set of standards. And you could be the world's best contractor.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that you know how to go through and inspect a house, because you're looking for building code violations. They typically go through the house really quickly.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they're not looking for the same things that we are. So one is not a substitute for another. And we've all seen those people who was like, well, I worked in construction when I was in my 20s and now I'm in my 40s, but
Yes.
I know everything I need to know. I can inspect the
Yes.
house myself,
Yeah.
or my father-in-law can come in
Oh,
and
yeah.
inspect the house because he's worked on his house his entire life.
Yes.
That's not the same thing at all.
It really isn't. So just really quick, for those of you guys who are thinking about doing your own home inspection, I think it's well worth the $500 to $700 ish to have a pro come in and really look. Even if you yourself are a general contractor, I think that it still is worth the money. It also serves as leverage. So
Absolutely.
I'll open that up, which is having a home inspection by somebody certified gives you the leverage to actually ask for something. If you just do the home inspection yourself, or you have a friend come in, you have zero leverage to ask for any of those items to be fixed or get a credit towards your closing costs or so on. So tell me some of the main things that you're looking for, or the things that come. I think this is a good question because we've worked together long enough. I hear like the same couple things come up all the time.
Right.
So if you were a home seller right now,
Right.
what things would you go around and do, like off the top of your head? What are the things you'd start with looking at?
So probably the biggest hazard to most homeowners is electrical stuff. So fire is very scary. And the most common cause for fires in residential house is electrical stuff. And all the time I see homeowners who don't want to pay the money for an electrician. So they try and do it themselves because they watch a YouTube video and they think that they can rewire circuits or put things together, and they tend to cut corners and they create unsafe conditions in their house. A lot of people don't realize, but the most likely place statistically for a fire to get started in a residential house is in the garage.
Yeah.
So that's where everybody does all their electrical modifications, and they string wire up over the rafters to power their garage door opener, and they do crazy stuff. And they create a fire hazard in an area where you're storing fuel and paint thinners and things like that. So you've got an area that is a high risk area anyway, then you're putting custom electrical in, and it's just not a good combination. So any electrical issues that you have with the garage, anything you did yourself, you probably want to have somebody who knows what they're doing come in and take a look at it, make sure that it was done okay before you get all the inspections done, because it's one of the biggest things we're going to call, and all electrical issues are health and safety issues.
Yeah. Yeah, that really makes sense and makes me think about my garage. What are some of the other ticker things that you see a lot of?
We see roof issues, we see plumbing leaks, water damage issues around the outside of the house and on the inside of the house. Those are kind of big things. And really with the home inspection, what we're looking for is either health and safety issues, things that could affect the safety or habitability of the occupants of the house, and or really large dollar item repairs.
Yeah.
That's primarily what I'm looking for in the home inspection. And along the way of looking for those big things, we run across a lot of smaller items, and we also put that stuff in the report. So the report is usually very extensive and detailed about what we saw with the house. And we use lots of color photographs and illustrations in our reports, because we also understand that most home buyers are not contractors, they're not construction people, they're not familiar with the nomenclature. And so we try and write the report so that even if you've never owned a house or you don't have any construction experience, you're still going to be able to understand what we're talking about. And then we take pictures, because the picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah. Well, I think the nice thing about your reports is that can easily be handed to a professional. So like something with the electrical comes up and maybe please don't deal with electrical if you haven't done it before. Okay. And then B, even if you have done it before, sometimes it's still something you want to hand off to a professional. So let's just say you know nothing about electrical. You can take his report and be like, there's some things wrong. And every electrician I've ever handed one of your reports is like, oh yeah, I mean, without even seeing the house, can almost always give you a bid on the work to be done. Occasionally they need to come over if it's bigger jobs, but a lot of times they know exactly what the report is referring to and can give you a pretty close estimate just based on inspection report.
And that kind of brings up another thing, which I forgot to mention, is in California, the only inspector out of the entire process that is prohibited from giving you estimates is the home inspector.
Yes.
So the pest inspector can give you bids, the roof inspector can give you bids, everybody else out there on the transaction can give you estimates, but the home inspector is prohibited by law. So although I can tell you what I saw and what needs to be repaired, I can't tell you how much it's going to cost.
Yeah, it's a little bit annoying, but it is the truth.
It's a whole lot
And
annoying.
it actually does keep you unbiased though.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
and I think in some ways I wish some of the other inspectors operated similarly, because there's obviously a, what am I trying to say?
There's a double standard.
Incentive. There's a
And there's
double
a double
standard and an
standard, yeah.
incentive for them to find something.
Right. And by that same token, my personal opinion is they should do it all one way or all the other.
Yep.
Either everybody can bid on it or nobody can bid
Yeah.
on it. So if you come out and inspect the house, you have no incentive to call stuff that isn't there, to try and generate work. I definitely get that. And I completely agree with that. But then that should apply to everybody else on the inspection process.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mhm.
Bidding is different than inspecting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally different.
Okay, so electrical stuff. Let's actually talk about, obviously we think about home inspections for home buyers.
Mhm.
And I've had very few home buyers who didn't do a home inspection, because I'm pretty clear that I think it's super important. But I have had a few. On the flip end, it has been so popular for forever to have home inspections done prior to sale in the Bay Area.
Yep. It's required over there by standard.
Like kind of the norm
Yes,
is to
exactly.
do that, versus here in El Dorado County and Sacramento and Placer County, we're starting to see a trend of it,
Yes.
but it's definitely not the norm yet. So let's talk about that. Why would a seller do it?
Well, it certainly makes for a smoother transaction and a smoother escrow when everybody knows up front what they're dealing with. You're not dealing with contingent offers, because they can go in and make their offer based on the condition of the property. And they've had somebody who is a neutral, disinterested party, not the seller who goes, oh my God, it's the best house we've ever had or that anybody's ever seen. There's somebody who has no financial interest in this transaction, who's going through and objectively inspecting all the systems and components and then saying, this is the condition of the house. And that way, when the buyer gets it, they can go in and go, oh, okay, well, we know we're going to have to do X, Y, or Z, or we know we want to do this. It's not just changing carpets or painting the walls. We need to do these things to make us feel comfortable living in the house. And so they can make their offer based on that. So they're not having to make a long contingency period while they're getting different inspections done. They have a pretty clear picture of what they're dealing with. One of the things that we also offer all of our home inspection clients is a product called HomeBinder, which goes through and checks all the major systems and appliances within the house, looks for recalls. If there aren't any, but one pops up in the future, it will send them an email and let them know. It also tracks all the reports, so you can keep all your reports in one place that's accessible from any platform, Mac or PC or iOS or Android. And you can transfer that to the buyers. So you can go, here's everything that we ever had, that we had done to the house, everybody that ever worked on it, if you upload that information in there, and all the reports we got, and here's everything, and here you go. And then the buyers have that, which makes your listing really stand out from everybody else's, because, and I've talked to other buyers about this, I've never had a buyer that went, no, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want to have that when I go make an offer. So.
Okay. Honestly, I haven't done that yet for my sellers, and I hadn't even thought of that, right?
Right.
Like the fact that you could actually, as a seller, upload all that stuff and pass it over instead of sort of a haphazard package.
Yep.
Which is kind of what mostly happens.
Right.
And I think something I'm more and more thinking, because I've been in this over a decade now, and if I'm really honest, I've always gone with sort of the normal, which is to not have a seller do a home inspection beforehand and just save the money and have the buyer do it. But because of the interesting market we're in, I am more and more seeing the advantage of, hey, spend the $500 up front, and it actually can save you so much time, energy, and money in the long run. You can choose to do some of the fixes or not, depending on what comes up, but you pass that over to the buyer, and they are far more apt to write an offer that says, my purchase is not contingent on an inspection, because they've already reviewed it.
And
versus,
statistically,
yeah,
88% of buyers will accept the previous report.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be those buyers who are going to say, no, we want to get our own inspection. But that's a really small percentage. Most of them will accept the existing inspection report. And the $500 you spend up front during the listing period is probably going to net you a much bigger return on the back end, because there's no contingencies. They're not negotiating repairs. They already know what's going on ahead of time.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, when you have a home inspector, like we were talking about contractors or your friend doing the inspection instead of a home inspector, we carry full insurance. So we've got E&O insurance as well as general liability insurance. So you're protected by our inspection. And so it's also a peace of mind for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't even thought of the peace of mind, but definitely the thought of like, you're spending $500, but I would say on average, sellers get asked for $1,000 to $5,000 worth of repairs. And so you're either going to know about that stuff up front, so it won't be a surprise, or they're not going to ask for any of it in a market like today. When you're getting 4 or 5 offers and they have full inspection reports, they're not going to ask for anything. But buyers are still asking for things if they're doing their own inspections. That is 100% the trend right now. Buyers are still asking for things. I think because their mindset is, I just beat out 15 offers and offered a massively high price, and we do still want things fixed.
Right. And the other thing is too, is that you know ahead of time what they're going to be asking for. So you can already be prepared for that and go, look, we're going to fix this, this, and this, or this is what we know is going on, and here's the estimates that we got for doing those repairs, so that the buyer goes into it knowing exactly what that's going to cost to fix those things. And you just have that peace of mind going into the transaction, and everything is already spelled out and set up for everybody.
Okay, so let's just see what else is interesting about home inspections.
Oh my gosh.
That's a big question.
Well, I mean, I think that for me is that it really helps people that are buying and selling homes, because let's face it, we all don't know exactly the condition of our own house because we see it every day.
Yeah.
And because we see it every day, the little stuff, which gets bigger and bigger and bigger problems, we kind of tune out because we walk by it every day and don't realize it. Then you go to sell your house and you get all these inspections and you have all these people who are doing nothing but looking for those things.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, this little thing that you thought was, it's no big deal, has become a big thing. You didn't realize it. And now you're in escrow and now you have to deal with it. And it can be an unpleasant surprise. So, even though you think, hey, we take good care of our house, we always get repairs done. I mean, Morgan and I just did a house yesterday, and I even told the buyer, I'm like, these people did everything above and beyond what you would expect. They didn't do the bare minimum as far as repairs. They did an excellent job. And that really helps too when you're doing the inspection during the listing period, because the home inspector is telling the buyers, hey, they did not only what they should have done, they did above and beyond. They did a really nice job. They really upgraded this, and you can talk about the different things, which that kind of helps sell the property as well. And it has much more weight than it does coming from the seller, who they already know loves their own house.
Yeah, exactly. Really quick, because I don't think everybody knows what you do and don't look at. Give kind of the dues, and then what are the couple other inspections out there that they should probably hire?
Sure. So we look at all the systems and components in the house. So we look at electrical, mechanical, heating and air conditioning, plumbing, and structural. We're looking at all those systems, but we're a generalist inspection. So we're not taking things apart. We're not doing diagnostic. We're not, saying, okay, well, this doesn't work, and here's why, because we spent hours taking everything apart and running all these tests. We don't do that. It's a generalist inspection. We operate things with normal operator controls. So we're not bringing in test meters and things like that to see, what's going on with it. We're looking and running everything to make sure it's working. And then probably the biggest single tool that I have in the toolbox is my eyes, because I've been doing this for a very long time. And that experience has shown me all the things that get overlooked by a lot of people when they walk through. Whereas to me, it's pretty obvious because I've been doing this for a long time. So I see these things and they stand out, but for a lot of people, it isn't.
Yeah.
So, and then the same thing with the wood on the outside of the house. I look for deteriorated wood members or water damage to roof eaves and siding and trim and things like that. The pest inspector, since that's all he's doing, is looking at fungus and dry rot and termites. Those are the two things he's out there to do. And they call him a pest inspector, and a lot of buyers get confused on what that means.
Yeah.
And they think, oh, we've got tons of spiders, or we've got rodents, or we've got whatever. They don't care about that.
No.
They're only looking at fungus, dry rot, and termites. So the scope of their
wood destroying
exactly
pests.
wood destroying pests and
Yes.
organisms.
Yeah.
So their scope is very, very limited. And because of that, and because they're focused on just that, they go into a lot more detail than I do about fungus and dry rot and things like that. And then the same thing is if you got an HVAC contractor to come out there and go through the heating and air conditioning system, they're going to go into much more detail than we do. They're going to take things apart. They're going to inspect the heat exchanger and disassemble the components. That's not what we do. So we basically, if you got all of those specialists out there to inspect your house, it'd probably be about $7,000 to have everybody come out and do an in-depth investigation. Whereas what the home inspection does is goes through the entire house, all the systems, and then narrows it down and goes, well, you have a problem in this component, you have a problem in this component, you want to get specialists to look at those two things, but you don't need to have everybody in to look at everything else because it looks like it's in good shape.
Right. Yeah. So basically they cover all the major systems of the house. You do. And then the other inspection that pretty much everybody wants to have or should have is that wood destroying pest inspection. They're looking for the termites. They're looking for the wood that's falling apart. Considering most people's houses are built of wood and not steel, it's important. I have sold a steel house.
Yes.
And so those two are your big primaries. And then, you know, someone like Kelly would let you know, hey, the HVAC's not operating correctly, or we have a major electrical thing here, or there's definitely some really good stuff going on with the roof. Let's bring in somebody additional there, or your foundation feels like a roller coaster. Let's bring in a structural engineer. So it's, you know, I like that you say you're a generalist. I mean, he knows so much stuff. There's like such a breadth of knowledge of 30 years of doing this. And I've learned a lot in 10 years. Like you should actually strap your range to the wall so it doesn't tip. And your dishwasher is supposed to have an air gap,
right?
So that you don't get bacteria onto those lovely clean dishes.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
And actually with the air gap, if you create a sealed system, you can actually pull soiled bacteria laden water from the bottom of the dishwasher into the water system that's coming out the tap.
Oh, fantastic.
So now the drain system is connected directly to the supply system. That's not good.
All right, on that note, just to wrap up, we're going to switch gears and talk about a couple of articles. But before we do that, Kelly, just tell them where they can find you. If they need to find you, where can they find you?
Absolutely. We have a website. So it's sierrainspections.com, plural. Or you can email me, Kelly at KELLY at sierrainspections.com, or give us a call, 916-256-2022.
All right, perfect. Well, we're going to switch gears. We've got a couple of interesting articles that I pulled up today, and one of which, let me share my screen, is we'll start here on the transportation. I think this is kind of exciting. Let's not look at her face. New transportation plan approved for Lake Tahoe. So
Yay.
all of us love Lake Tahoe. I love going up there. And it's funny that this came up because literally 2 weeks ago, I was up there and my husband and I were parking to go hiking. And I thought, this is insanity. How many cars are parked on the sides of this tiny little 2-lane road to go hiking? And they're pulling out their like 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds, dogs. And I'm like, this has got to be crazy. So I read this in the Mountain Democrat, and then I went over and I took a look. And just for the lowdown for everybody, it looks like they're going to add services to provide 15-minute service between the town centers and the recreation destinations. And I believe that this is all the way around the lake.
That would be amazing. I'm not quite sure how they're going to get everybody else to get off the road so the buses can get through, but that would be amazing.
And then 30 to 60-minute service between neighborhoods and town centers. Technology, it says connecting people with information about more ways to travel, trails, increasing trips by foot and bike by providing walking and biking routes. I don't know what that's going to look like, but it would be so exciting if there was an entire bike trail frankly, around the whole lake.
That would be cool. There are some really good bike trails there though.
There are.
So, and I've spent a lot of time on those bike trails and getting between areas. It's so much faster and so much prettier than the road.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. So if they expand that network so that there
Yeah.
was more bike trails, that would be really, really cool.
Yeah. And then let's see, communities and corridors, bringing plan elements together with a corridor planning framework. That's a lot of fancy words. But really, they don't give us a whole time frame on this or whatever, but it is exciting that at least they've passed some sort of plan to do something up there to make our trips enjoyable.
Yeah, that would be really nice because we spend a lot of time in traffic when you go to Lake Tahoe,
Yeah.
especially on like a holiday weekend. I was sharing with Morgan that my sister and her family go up to Lake Tahoe every year for 4th of July. And Michelle and I have tried going up there to see them. In the last couple of years we've gone up there, the traffic was so horrendous that it took us, one time took us 5 hours to get from South Shore, actually at the lake, to where they were staying. And I'm like, this is just insane.
Yeah.
So thankfully they're addressing it. That's awesome.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll really keep the 4th of July weekend
Well,
that much better, but
every little bit can help, right?
And then the other thing that I was reading about is hot NorCal real estate trend, 3 words, accessory dwelling units. And this is on KCRA 3. And they were talking about how having an accessory dwelling unit, which in other words is a guest quarters or an in-law unit, granny flat, garage conversion, any of those things, basically a second dwelling on one property, does increase home value. So
absolutely.
what
Not
are your
to mention
thoughts?
the fact, I think that society has changed and we're bringing our elderly parents to come live with us. I mean, that's even something Michelle and I are looking at, how we're going to deal with her mom, and we're going to have to, probably bring her to our house at some point in the not too distant future, because the idea of putting our elderly parents in some kind of a care facility is less and less appealing. We want our families home. So, and I think it's something that we're all at a certain age are looking at dealing with, and the option to be able to easily and affordably add that capability, whether that's a detached structure or a converted garage or however you're going to do that, or even adding on to your house, to be able to provide a facility where you can keep your elderly parents closer to you. And it is just phenomenal. And I'm really excited that they're offering this opportunity and making it affordable and accessible, because there's been a lot of regulatory restrictions to doing that in the past. So that's really cool. I'm excited.
I think that, there's so many things with ADUs, but El Dorado County's always been pretty ADU friendly because we
more
have
than most around here.
Yeah, we have larger lot sizes, so it's a lot easier for a rural community to say, okay, you have 5 acres. Right. Yes, you can add. I think when I first started real estate, it was up to either your house size. So like if you lived in a 1,200 square foot house, I believe you could add something up to the 1,200 square feet. They changed this a few years ago, and regardless of what you currently have, you can add a secondary dwelling up to 1,600 square feet, I believe.
That's true. Yeah, it was 1,200 square feet in El Dorado County was the limit on like a second structure on the property, and they've increased it dramatically just in El Dorado County. And I would assume that Sacramento and Placer are following. But El Dorado County has already done that. So.
Yeah, they did that. That was a few years back. And then at the beginning of, I think 2019 was when California wide said any single residence can add, as long as they follow setback rules, can add a secondary dwelling. And so in Southern California, it's been a really hot ticket, people converting their garages. And my parents, speaking of elderly, so this is like a reverse scenario of like, how can we retire and stay in our Southern California house?
Sure.
And the answer for them was to spend, I think they spent $60,000. Okay. And they have converted their basically 400 square foot garage into honestly a very nice 1-bedroom, believe it or not. They actually got a bedroom out of the thing. And they are renting it for $1,700 a month.
It's Southern California real estate.
Yes. Now we may not be able to get the $400 or 400 square feet at $1,700 a month, but I mean, rental rates in El Dorado County are crazy.
They are absolutely. And that's just
Yeah.
across our entire area. It's not
Yeah.
just El Dorado County, it's
Right.
Placer, Sacramento,
Yeah.
Yolo. It's the whole area is just rental rates are through the roof.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is not just elderly parents, but what about all the kids that are graduating from college
yeah.
that can't afford to go rent a house or buy a house?
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing more and more people are having the kids come back home
Mhm.
after they graduate from college or whatever they're doing with their lives, and they're bringing them back home instead of them going out and getting someplace because it's so uh, expensive in
Yeah.
California for kids to get started nowadays.
Yeah.
So, it gives them another option to kind of get their legs underneath them and get some money saved up, and whether they're going to rent or buy, it kind of gives them a chance to get started.
Yeah. Yeah. And then honestly, because my investor brain always thinks about this too. Even if you are not, I'm just going to pull us back to stopping sharing the screen here. Even if you don't have either of those scenarios,
Right.
but you're looking to make money on your property. I mean,
Got you.
I've thought about this a little bit on our property because we would have room to add something somewhere. We'd probably have to move the shed. Don't tell my husband. But like a 600, 800 square foot little building and rent it out.
Yeah.
And so, think about this. Not everybody has that dream, but it's amazing that for, probably $80,000 to $100,000, you could add a second little dwelling.
Yeah, depending on the size,
Yeah.
for sure. And you're going to recover that investment relatively quickly with a rental property,
Mhm.
not to mention the fact that it increases the value of your own property when you go to sell in the future and you hire Morgan to list your property because you've got an additional unit on the property.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
definitely is a plus and a plus.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's our show today.
Awesome.
Thank you for
Well, thank
joining
you.
us. That was fun. I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you need to reach me, I can be reached at blissrealestate.com or blissre. Wait, actually, what is my website? blissrealestateteam.com. And my phone number is 530-957-6236. I'm always available to answer your questions, although I'm sleeping between 9 and 6, so PM. All right, guys, we will
Thank
see you
you.
for episode 6. Thanks so much.